Tip number 2 is the stencil applicator that you use for applying your paint or embossing medium or whatever you're using with your stencil. Now, stencil brushes are our favorite applicator when it comes to paint, but I'm going to show you this. I don't love this brush. You see how this brush angles up like this? This, when going through the stencil opening, can sometimes cause paint to go underneath the stencil because of the angle of these bristles. So it's not our favorite option. It is, although, a very nice soft, and this was actually quite an expensive brush. This is the type of brush that we prefer. It's called a dome top stencil brush. And what that does is this part here hits the opening of the stencil, but these bristles don't push up against the edge of the stencil. It's soft. We use these. We have 3 sizes that we use in this dome. This is the largest one, so if we have a larger stencil, we will use this. But this is one of our favorite types of bristles. Now, I'm going to switch to the overhead. Some other items, if you have a large project or if you're working on let's say a large dresser, or if you are painting a wall, a roller is a good way for applying paint to a larger stencil. There are some stencil specific foam rollers that we have used in the past. You really need to select that based on the size of your project. Now, if you have, let's say, multiple colors that you're working on, but you just have a small amount of each paint, sometimes something like a makeup sponge is a great way for applying the paint. It's disposable. You don't have to dirty a whole bunch of brushes. With this particular, it's great for dabbing color on to your project. You just load some paint here, very little, make sure that you've removed any excess, and then dab the paint on. When I use a sponge, I will often use a glove so that because my hands get covered in paint, and then if I touch the project, I will end up with paint all over everything. So that's one thing I do with the sponges. Now, one thing I am going to show you, and it's something I do when I teach a class or I'm meeting with somebody in person. I was talking to you about the dome top stencil brush that we love. I will do another video talking about the different application styles, whether it's tapping or swirling. But I did want to show you when you swirl with a stencil, and I'm just going to do this sideways here. Take the brush, if you want to know how much weight to apply when you are applying the paint, take your stencil brush and swirl it on your hand. And if it tickles, that is the right amount of pressure to be applying. If you press too hard, that will cause some bleed under with the stencil, but you don't have to apply the brush really hard. So try this out. If it's tickling your hand, then you know the application amount is perfect. So just one little tip there. We will be sharing more of those. Now, if you are somebody who loves to work on projects with embossing medium, there are palette knives and there are different applicator tools that you can get for applying. You can see this one's had some good use over the years. But I like to have some of these really cheap plastic applicators in different sizes. You can find these at your hardware store or even at dollar stores. I used to have some that were probably about the size of this one, only in a clear plastic, and they were amazing. I really need to look for more of those again. Again, we will cover embossing projects at a later date, but just wanted to show you some of the tools for success.